Great, welcome. My name is Erin Haynes. I'm an associate professor here in environmental health. And today we are going to share with you the topic of communicating your science. And this could be a whole class. I've tossed around the idea of making a new course called Communicating Your Science and going in depth in all of the different avenues of communicating your science. But today we're going to just do a very quick overview and hopefully give you an idea of, or even some tips on some of the best strategies and approaches when you are faced with the opportunity of communicating your science. So we have myself today. I'm going to do a brief introduction of our speakers. We also have Allison Sampson Matthews. She is a UC Public Information Officer who's going to share what she does with media and how you can be responsive with media. And then we have one of our own emeritus faculty, Dr. Grace Lemasters, who has communicated her science for years. And she's going to focus on giving talks, scientific talks. So we love communication is not just one way, is it? You have to have, my mom she taught theater. And it was that she always gave that analogy of bouncing the ball. And she would have people, one of their first things they would do in her sessions, they'd have a ball and then they'd have to bounce it back and forth. And they'd have that they'd have to say something as they bounced it. But when you are posting something on Facebook, you expect a reply. You want likes, you want comments, and if somebody doesn't comment, then you're ticked off. Why didn't they comment? Why didn't they like it? Or, oh, that was a lame comment. But communication is that back and forth dialogue. So keep that in mind. All right. So I wanted to hear from you about the audiences that you communicate to. As a scientist, who do you communicate with or to? All right, this is the ball bounce. I just bounced it to you, so you have to bounce it back. Who has the ball? You in the middle. Who do you communicate to? Your peers, other scientists, yes, other students. Who else do you communicate to? Policymakers, yes, you talk to government officials, people that you want to make change with. Excellent. Who else?
If you're doing any kind of outreach, then community partners.
Yes, you talk to community. Certainly. That may be a little more challenging, but that's the one I'm going to hit today. Yep. Any other people you might communicate to?
Funding agencies.
Yes, absolutely. So the whole component of writing a grant is one big, long communication. But you also have to sell the agency ideas and get them to buy in. This is a really important area. We need to put money here. Absolutely. Great. I think you've covered the bulk of them. So, yeah, Kim.
Study participants.
Yes. So if you're doing research with humans, anyone doing research with humans? Yeah, hands. Yes, communicate with me. Then you have to respond back to them. How do you get them into the study? How do you tell them what they're expected to do as a participant? And then afterwards, all of that, the public gets exposed to science. I think that's a really neat science opportunity. And I would put the research participants in the bucket of general community audience. So recently we had a media event where Allison called Dr. Lemasters, who then referred her to me, and then with a research study that we did on firefighters. And I thought, since all three of us are threaded with that topic, that would be like the theme and the example that we could walk through. So you communicate to your peers, and you do that in what mechanisms? Talking, you go to a scientific talk, you write a manuscript, you give data, you give facts, it has maybe some jargon, lots of abbreviations, statistics, things that are very complex, right? It's a complicated topic. So Dr. Lemasters and her colleagues worked on a meta-analysis of firefighters. And they had over 100,000 firefighters in this meta-analysis. Very complicated. The meta-analysis procedure was very, very rigorous and detailed. I mean, I've done a meta-analysis, but when I looked at their strategy, it was like, this is even more crazy than a traditional meta-analysis. But they found that there were elevated cancers in firefighters, and those were multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, prostate, testicular cancer. This is some pretty big data that came out. Firefighters gravitated to this. So this was a community population, a worker population, that when this data came forth, they knew about it. I don't know how they originally found out about this study. Through UCPR. That's great. And this picture was taken by a UCPR person. So when you write a manuscript, and I don't want to, Allison can talk about it, but sometimes you'll do a press release. Hey, this is big news. Press will come. And they had this photograph taken at Ladder 19. So the next steps with Ladder 19, they became more interested, and we said, let's do a research study on you. Not like there was a meta-analysis, but let's do human subjects. Let's start investigating some of your exposures and why you might be exposed and during what phases of the firefighting and putting out the fire and then the overhaul might you be exposed. So we wanted to conduct that study with their involvement. So in the communication, I'm not going to focus on the research component, but I'm going to focus on the communication part. This took a lot of meetings just to get a study launched. We had to communicate, and this is Dr. Stuart Baxter, toxicologist and a cancer toxicologist, meeting and talking about the risk that firefighters face with cancer. And there's, they have lunch at their firehouse right up the street, so we'd walk up, have a nice conversation. Sometimes they'd invite us to eat with them, but mostly we just talked about firefighter risk. And we had the captains there. And this is Captain Jack Klosterman. And you can see just by his stance, he's not, would you say he's really interested? He's not really sold on this. No, he's not. That came across very clear. But he was open to a research study. He was very open to that. So we worked, we actually did one. And there's the group. We had students go over, and we collected samples. We did air monitoring, and just the whole setup of a research study with firefighters who sit around the firehouse and wait for a call, and then they go on a call. How do you get baseline and all the details, and then they're off. They have a Kelly day. That whole process took a lot of communication. We had to find out exactly who was going to be at the firehouse, what day, make sure we had IRB and all the consent forms. It was a communication, lots of big hurdles. But it was the constant meetings and the back and forth that we had that made it successful. When we completed the study, we did find that there were levels of exposure. Yep.
How do you gain the trust? You said that they were initially sold.
Yeah.
How do you, just by coming again and again?
Yep. So the trust is a huge, that is one of the key pieces of working with communities. And that could be a whole topic of community engagement and research. Today I wanted to focus on how did we communicate with them and work through them. But how did we gain their trust? One, we had the fella in the white, he has retired since, and his name's escaping me, but we had his buy-in. He was more senior. He was in the authority position. We had his buy-in. And then he had to go along with it. So I'd say you find one key person that you can really work with and organize the meetings with, because you have to have someone to help schedule and know when to be there, when. Find one key person and work through them. And then it does happen, because you'll see he changes here in the end. That's why I highlighted it. Notice how he is now. So one of our communication messages, we found there were levels of carcinogens and PAHs and toxic chemicals on their gear. We found it on their skin. We did dust white samples. We found it in the air. We put monitors, and so we worked with them and talked with them about recommendations that we could give back. So they didn't, and we didn't want to just let the science sit. We wanted to do something with it. So on our own, we made this, ran it past them, wanted to get their feedback, and it was very colorful. And we worked with someone in journalism to help make this piece, which they then plastered all over their firehouses and in their restrooms. They said they loved using it. But when we took the data back, and we took the results back, we met with the union firefighters. We asked them, it should be animated. I asked them how, so I shared with them some of the data, and I said, how do you think we should communicate this out to the rest of the firefighters? This is just one house, but how best can we do that? And that was really important, asking them, because we made a nice little flyer. We thought that was cute, colorful, to the point, but they said a video. They said, we want a video. That was out of I don't do video. But they said they wanted a video, and they were going to share it with all the new firefighters. So the older fellow, recognized the importance of prevention. The younger guy in the middle, not so much. But they recognized it, and they said, okay, we're going to tell our new guys to wear your air, wash yourself after a fire. They wanted those recommendations early on. And then they also said, you must include stories from the local fire guys who have had cancer. That will convince the new guys that they need to do something now. Because these are, firefighters are like cowboys. They just go out, and that's why they pick that profession. They'll just run out, and the first one on the scene gets the glory without the gear. So they wanted to target the new guys, the younger fellas. And they said this, we want to scare them into knowing that this is a reality. That was not in my thought of a communication message. I wasn't thinking, let's scare the heck out of these fire guys. But they knew their target audience better than I did. So as scientists, we are experts in our field. You are an expert in epi. You're an expert in biostatistics. You're an expert maybe in a chemical that you're studying. But when it comes to the target audience, no one knows them better than the target audience. So these were their recommendations. And they also told us we had to, quote, knock it out of the park, which that meant I can't make it on my iPhone. I have to go get help. So we worked with a marketing company. And this was like a picture of what it looked like when we were filming. And if you notice, there he is. There's our reluctant fireman. He had, in the meantime of all the research that we did, in the meantime of making or prepping for this video, had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. He was now a believer. He became into the movie then. So all of these gentlemen, firefighters, they had been diagnosed with cancer, and they said, yes, we'll be in your video. In fact, Captain Klosterman was the one who went out and did the invitations to be a part of this, and they were very happy to do it. And then the video is now we made it on YouTube, and I thought it might be good you can see it, so you can see what their communication did. Hopefully it works. Oh, do I hit it?
Yep, hit it there, and it's going to come up over here.
We all know firefighting is a dangerous job. It takes courage to run into a burning building. We all know firefighting is a dangerous firefighters' lives. It takes courage and it's following them back to the firehouse. But there's a hidden danger that's taking fire.
What's up? My name is Joe Loneman. I've been with the fire service for 23 years. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer when I was 45 years old.
All right, we'll start it over.
We all know firefighting is a dangerous job. It takes courage to run into a burning building, but there's a hidden danger that's taking firefighters' lives, and it's following them back to the firehouse.
My name is Joe Loneman. I've been with the fire service for 23 years. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer when I was 45 years old.
My name is Joe Gunowick. I was with the fire service for 27 years. I was diagnosed with kidney cancer when I was 53 years old.
Hi, I'm Jack Klosterman. I've been in the fire service for 34 years. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer at the age of 51.
Hazardous chemicals from a fire remain in the air, on firefighters' skin, and on their equipment even after the fire is out. These chemicals cause serious health problems that many firefighters are not aware of.
It was a badge of courage to have a dirty helmet, to prove you had been in all these fires, and how you approached fires, the gear that you would wear, whether or not you'd put a mask on. When I first came on, some of the old timers were like, "Oh, come on, kid, you got to be tougher than that." And when you look back on it, yeah, I could be tougher than that. I could do a lot of tough things. I could do a lot of dumb things too.
Like Joe and Jack said, we all went into fires. We used to run into fires if it was a small one-room fire or a kitchen fire. You run in there without your mask on because that was the quickest way to get there. You wanted to be the first guy at the scene. You wanted to be the first guy. You wanted to be the guy with the nozzle to put the fire out. That's where all the glory is. So you go as fast as you can. You don't wear your mask. You get in, you put it out, and then if you start getting choked up, you put your mask on, and then finish the firefight and get out. And Jack was saying he wore his mask on overhaul. I was one of the first guys to take off my mask at overhaul because I can suck the smoke. I'm cool, and that's how I felt. And I wish I wasn't so cool.
New guys coming on today want to ask themselves how inconvenient is it for me to wear my HEPA mask, keep my air on? When I got cancer, the book says you have probably 12 months to live. Think that's inconvenient? Or is it a little less inconvenient to put on your mask? And when you walk out that door, walk out thinking that I've got 12 years or I've got 20 years to enjoy it. There's no inconvenience big enough to make you go through this.
Firefighters can take 3 simple precautions to help save their lives. Wear your air, wash yourself, wash your gear. Save a firefighter's life by sharing this video.
Okay, that was good. So there was science in the video. We wanted to make sure it was legitimate and it had all the scripts were reviewed by the experts to make sure we were communicating the right message. The impact, just a brief, it was shared across the Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters. This was a while ago. There were 40,000 views, 100,000 shares, which are 1,000 shares, which is good. It's a good measure of did people like it enough to pass it on. And now it's also being used, it's also being used along with all of the research as an incentive and information for state legislature as they're considering and working towards this Senate Bill 27 to make it an occupational cancer, which in Ohio it is not considered. If you get cancer as a firefighter, it's not considered part of your job. In other states it is, many other states, and Ohio is working towards that. Anyway, all of this then came from very rigorous research and then put into messages that could be used for the public. We don't make cartoons, but I thought this was another good way to communicate science. Clean my gear, but all the cool-looking carcinogens will wash off. And that message was the same. And these cartoons, this fellow, Paul Combs, he was inspired by Dr. Lemaster's research studies coming. So he made these cartoons based on the data. So if anyone has art skills, art and science can really go together beautifully well. Because would you rather hear of an hour-long scientific talk or walk away with that cartoon? Okay, so I wanted to give you a few take-home messages that you can think about. I want you to, when you are communicating with community, you have to know your audience. Who are you talking with? Whether it be government or community members, just consider who you're talking to. Maybe you're at a 5th grade class. What level do you want to take your science to? keep the message very simple, straightforward, yet scientific, because you are an expert in the field. You probably know more than anyone about the topic. That's how you have to go in with it. And then keep it science. Make it real. How can you make it real for them? And what has helped me continue to make things real is the more you communicate with that target audience, the more you know what's important to them, and then you can see and think, how does the science then translate into what's meaningful for them? So you can hear what was meaningful for them, and that it came out in the video, was their retirement and their life after work, and they wanted to spend it with family, right? And then this diagnosis and their lack of prevention on the workplace was messing up with that. So the messages now could focus on, you want a healthy retirement. And don't underestimate your audience. They are smart. They are very, very smart. Their level of education has no bearing here. They are very, very knowledgeable on chemicals, and they know where they are. When we were collecting samples, we asked about, I wanted to know what was on skin, and they said, well, I wanted to do a face sample. I thought on their face. They said, no, it's not on our face. It's on our neck. It's like back here and then on the palms of our wrists. So they knew where we should be collecting data even more than we did. And then that constant contact. Maintain a very good working relationship. That'll help build the trust too. And always ask them, what are the best communication strategies? So if you're at a 5th grade class, you could say to the teacher, all right, give me an example lesson plan, or, how best should I do this? And also get feedback from experts. Institution reps with the media, always talk with a media person beforehand. I don't want to put your family on here because you're in science. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but it's good to talk to people who aren't in science. And then just start sharing your message or your research, give it back to them, and then see how they respond. What do they think?